Can't decide and torn between a romantic, comedy, action, or an indie film to watch for the weekend? Well. Golden State Media Concepts Movie Podcast is your ultimate guide to the latest movies. Join us as we dissect the latest on the blockbusters. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Movie Podcast.
Hello, and welcome back to another GSMC movie podcast with your host, Bryn Taylor. I hope you guys are having an amazing weekend and soaking up those rays of sunshine if you're in a place like I am with some amazing, beautiful spring weather. Don't talk to my allergies about that, though. They'll say something completely different. If you're not in a nice place, that is super unfortunate unless you like the cold. And in that sense, I'd say you should really see a psychiatrist. Anyways, it is a very exciting show today. We are going to cover a lot of movie reviews, upcoming box office news, drama, gossip, etc., etc. It's going to be a very packed show. So get ready, get set, because here we go. First up today, we've got some very exciting Marvel news. Shocker there. I know I never talk about Marvel on this show. Sorry, it's like the only thing I care about. And finally, the trailer for Shang Chi and the 10 Rings was released. It was dropped on Monday and showed us our newest member of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And oh my god, are we lucky. It's written by David Callahan, the same writer who created Wonder Woman 1984. Do I sense a little Marvel versus DC Comics feud brewing? I don't know. It's starring the newest Marvel heartthrob. Move out of the way, Sebastian Stan. Simu Liu has taken the stage, and he's going to rob all of our hearts. However, before we get too excited, it's important to cover what we know about Shang-Chi from the Marvel Comics, and what we can look forward to as the movie continues to tease us with info until its release in the fall. First off, Shang-Chi was brought into the MCU comics in 1972. This wasn't an inclusive move for Marvel. They simply did it in order to keep in the pop culture eye as Kung Fu was on the rise. Yeah. Kinda makes you feel icky to know that fact, but fingers crossed the movie will be a little less racially charged and on the nose. And by fingers crossed, I mean it better be. Anyways, in the comics, Shang-Chi works his whole life to become a beast at martial arts. And then, when he's older, he has to defeat his evil father. The movie seems to follow this with its own Marvel Cinematic Universe stylization. Of course, the personalization is the most important and likable part about Marvel films, and we are definitely going to see that in this one. The trailer showed us what the idea is going to be. Shang-Chi will have that dramatic childhood where he trains his whole life to be a kung fu master. We've got some dramatic clips of him viciously punching a wooden pole in flashbacks. So dramatic, you kinda want to laugh, but I will never knock Shang-Chi's grind. Shang-Chi is raised and trained by his father, Wenwu, who is the leader of an evil group who are after the quote-unquote 10 rings, which are basically just glowing armbands that basically give you the same powers as Thanos' Infinity Stone glove would give you. Apparently, the 10 rings were actually supposed to be something you wore on your hands, but they felt like that was a little bit too close to the glove, so now they're just gonna, do armbands instead. I really hope there's some crossover later on in the Marvel Universe where the Infinity Stone glove and the 10 rings are combined, because who knows what will happen. It's definitely going to be bigger than the blip, though. Now, interesting enough, Wenwu is also referred to as, quote-unquote, the Real Mandarin. And if you've thought you've heard that name before, you'd be right. It was the racist trope character played by Ben Kingsley in 2013's Iron Man 3. Now, Wenwu will apparently be the quote-unquote Real Mandarin, whatever that means, but I have a bad feeling that that means Ben Kingsley was heavily appropriating an Asian man in Iron Man 3. And if so, we're going to need a little bit of info from Kevin Feige. Awkwafina will also be a large character in Shang Chi. She will portray the role of Katie, a hotel valet who Shang-Chi befriends when moving to San Francisco. And, as most best friends in Marvel movies go, she will be dragged into the superhero world. Although the trope is wildly overused, I am excited for Awkwafina's on-point comedic timing in this film. She is one of the funniest comedians of our generation. So I'm thrilled for the moment when she's in battle, and hopefully, praying to God, Kevin Feige lets her do some ad-libbing, like in Nora from Queens. Shang-Chi is an insanely exciting moment for film history for two main reasons. One, it's the first predominantly Asian cast in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It is incredibly important for everyone to see themselves in the role models the MCU creates on the big screen. Asian and Pacific Islanders deserve to have a superhero who resembles them and represents their culture in a respectful and impactful way. Black Panther was insanely impactful for Marvel, and it definitely showed us that Marvel and Disney as a whole have a long way to go for racial inclusivity. It is exciting to see them taking those steps and really expanding themselves to make their movies more inclusive for all viewers, young and old. The other reason this film is so exciting is because it is so unknown. Be honest. How many people, beside Marvel-obsessed geeks, have read the Shang-Chi comics? Your answer is going to be zip, zero, nada, because there's none. Everyone knew Spider-Man. Everyone knew Hulk and Captain America. They knew how they got there, they knew how they got their powers. But characters like Shang-Chi, even though they have an already written comic origin, are relatively a blank slate. Filmmakers are able to really play with Shang-Chi. They can make him, in general, whatever they want. To be honest, there is a lot they have to change from the comics. There are a lot of moments where Asian culture is heavily appropriated, made fun of, and wrongfully capitalized on. It is crucially important for this movie to rewrite these moments in order to make them appropriate, influential, and impactful. The movie has a lot of potential to be another great Marvel film that ties real-life human connections and familiar relationships with action, gore, and suspense. There's a lot that's going to be dealt with, especially since Shang-Chi's main bad guy in the film will be his dad. Talk about complicated relationships. Although it's on a greater scale, it will be beyond relatable for many viewers. The push and pull factor between moral differences but familiar responsibilities to your parents, it'll be amazing. And at its core, it will really focus on this family drama, which will make this superhero story that much more humane. I really enjoy watching this type of film because it has you rooting for the protagonist, not just because they're your friendly neighborhood superhero, cough cough, Spider-Man, Peter Parker, who protects you from bad guys, but because they're a human being who is actively trying to deal with their own personal problems, just like you and me and him and her and they and them. Needless to say, I am definitely going to be sitting in theaters on September 3rd, popcorn and blue raspberry slushie in hand, ready to laugh, cry, and jump from the action of Shang-Chi and the Ten Rings. I think it's going to be one of my new favorites in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I honestly think Marvel thinks so too. If you go on their website, they're already selling Shang-Chi action figures, toys, pop figures. I mean, I could probably have a Shang Chi styled kids room right now with sheets and a comforter to match. I mean, if there's one thing Disney knows how to do, it's how to make money. But I guess that is showbiz, or Disney biz? No matter who's advertising it, in this business, it sure is all about the Benjamins. Next up, we'll be talking about the most important time of the year. It's like Christmas for cinema freaks. And that is, drumroll please, the Oscars! Woo, woo, yeah, yeah, yeah! What's nominated? What have I seen? What did I love? What could I have skipped? You know the drill. It'll be hot takes, and I definitely haven't seen all of it, but I've seen some of it, so maybe you want to listen. We'll be right back. Stay tuned.
Want to know the latest and hottest music hitting the airwaves? Don't be left out. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Music Podcast. It keeps you on the loop with everything you need to know from pop, rock, hip-hop, and the top 40. And we'll throw in news of your favorite artists, concert and tour dates, and so much more. Listen no further, because this is the gold standard in music podcast.
Once a year, every single movie obsessors comes out of the dark-lit basement they live in. They take a shower. They put on their best suit, maybe even make themselves a meal that isn't cheese from a can with a Ritz cracker, and go right back into that dark basement to watch a bunch of beautiful millionaires win awards. That's right, baby! It's the Oscars! And this year is weird, to say the least. I mean, the Oscars has been getting weird since streaming platforms began their reign of terror, and movie theaters became low-key obsolete. But COVID has made that a million times worse. Many movies had to turn to streaming platforms just to get the views they deserved. Nominees like Nomadland were released on Hulu, which, by the way, is the same platform that lets you stream The Bachelor and South Park. Yeah. One of these things is definitely not like the other. So instead of boring you all with me just going through each of the nominees, we're going to do a fun little exercise together. I'm going to fill out my Oscar ballot for all of you lovely listeners, and I'm going to desperately attempt to defend my choices. But let's be honest, I have in no way any credentials to be doing this. But this is what I feel like choosing, so I'm going to do it. First off, of course, we have Best Picture. It's the big doozy. The last one to be announced, but the first one everyone has an opinion on. Because even if you're totally empty in the brain, you can at least decide which film was the most entertaining, captivating, or worth the watch. For me, I truly am stuck. Okay, Minari was one of the most beautiful films I have seen in a long time. A24 never fails to create such real, raw stories. They are the OG tellers, and they do it majestically and in a flawless style. Minari was captivating. The acting from Yoo Jun-young, who played the grandmother, honestly won the whole thing for me. She was captivating. She was funny. She was heart-wrenchingly beautiful. Her acting shined through the language difference between English-speaking audiences and her mother tongue dialogue. It was beautiful. She made such an impact on the film. The cinematography was also very easy and beautiful. It had pastel tones, like a daze was constantly crossing the film, which really encapsulates the haze that covers the real American dream for many immigrants who attempt to make it in America. My second choice, and frankly, One of my favorite movies I've seen in a while was Promising Young Woman. Oh my god, this movie. Talk about cinematography. The entire film felt like someone had slipped you a pill in a bright, colorful EDM club, which is kind of the point. We watch as a woman, deeply grieving for her best friend, attempts to exact revenge on all the greasy, skeevy, and downright bad men in this world. This movie is a feminist anthem. Casey Mulligan's performance is chillingly creepy, dryly funny, and written with poise and clever. She plays it like a star, and she leaves the audience rooting for her. And she leaves the audience rooting for her as she does some questionable things, to say the least. At the end of the day, I believe that Promising Young Woman has a pretty good chance of winning, but I don't know if Hollywood is ready to pick this film as a winner. It's good, but I feel that these suspense action films rarely make the winning film, so for that reason, I'm checking Minari's box. Oh, wait. JK, guys. I just saw that Trial of the Chicago 7 was an option, which I didn't even know was nominated. I want that film to win so badly, I'm gonna check that. Sacha Baron Cohen. Need I say more? Yep. And when I clicked it, I'm doing it on New York Times, by the way, guys. 12% of people think it's gonna win. Minari has 7%, and the winner at this moment is The Father with 15%. And I'd be lying if I'd said I'd seen that, so I should probably do that now. For director, I will be clicking Emerald Fennell's box. She did such a spectacular job with Promising Young Woman that I just think it is so necessary to support and celebrate the story she brought to life. She played beautifully with both light and dark sides of the story and told such a poignant story quite elegantly. This movie could have flopped, I'm going to be honest. It's a really weird story that, honestly, a lot of people, it could have been brushed aside as a red box kind of film. But because of her creative eye, it soared, and for that reason, I think that she deserves the award. For leading actor, I think that Chadwick Boseman, may he rest in peace, will win for his performance in Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. It would be a beautiful tribute to a person with such a commitment to the craft of acting. His performance was transcendent, and we truly have lost one of our generation's most memorable storytellers. For leading actress, my heart wants Casey Mulligan, but I gotta go with Frances McDormand for Nomadland. Queen slays every role she plays. Each movie she touches, gold. 3 Billboards really highlighted that raw, gritty acting she can perform, and she did just that in Nomadland. Although I'd love to say that Carey Mulligan will win, because of her performance in Promising Young Woman, McDormand just knocks it out of the park, and I think Mulligan will have way more chances to win, since she is young and promising. See what I did there? And Promising Young Woman literally is going to skyrocket her career. I think she's already been announced to be in a new, quote-unquote, serious Adam Sandler movie, so she will be fine. Awards will be in her future, I believe it. For actor in a supporting role, Sacha Baron Cohen all the way. Through his role of Avi Kaufman in the Trial of the Chicago 7, the man showed us that on top of his absurd comedian style, he can play deep, poignant parts. He killed it. End of story. I would like to say that Leslie Odom Jr. could also take it for his work in One Night in Miami, but I just think that Cohen killed it with his performance. Biopics are always hard to pull off, and Netflix did it phenomenally. That's a sentence I feel like I would have never said in my whole life. A lot of people are saying that Olivia Colman will win supporting actress for her work in The Father. All right, you guys already know. I did not watch it, so I really can't say. But, and I know I already ranted about this person, but Yoo Jung-yoon better win for her work in Minari. The director legit said she was the best actress he's ever worked with, period. End of story. End of sentence. She better win. Imagine her cute little grandma-like body, like getting up and like giving a little speech. Oh my god, I'd cry. I'd cry. Promising Young Woman will take original screenplay. Even though it may not win Best Film, it is the most brilliant idea for a film I've seen in a while. And it's written quite amazingly. There's a lot that isn't said in the film, And yet the audience understands a bulk of the story really well. And the twist is insanely cool and so not seen coming. Truth be told, I have yet to see any of the international films. I know I'm the worst and I'm sorry. We'll get on that ASAP, but because of that, I am abstaining from voting on this one. For Best Animated Feature, obviously, in a landslide, we have Soul. I hope you all experienced this film at least once, hopefully twice, because it's just that good. Pixar does it again with their poignant, larger-than-life pieces of cinematography that just rattle the world. Even though Soul is technically a children's film, it has potential to give any adult a quarter or midlife crisis. I mean, even I was like, why am I here? What is my purpose? What defines me? It is breathtakingly beautiful and charismatic, suspenseful, driven. I mean, I could go on and on. Needless to say, it's winning this category. For sound, Soul and Sound of Metal are definitely tied, but again, I'm gonna go with Soul. Its work with musicality was really phenomenal, using different styles and forms of jazz to just really heighten an already spectacular film. Visual effects will go to Mulan. It's a live-action Disney film, so it's gotta have some good effects. I mean, of course, it is a more realistic portrayal, but it's still going to need a lot of enhancement on battle scenes, as well as the picture-perfect Disney moments, so... Short animated film. If anything happens, I love you. Period. When I tell you I sobbed, I mean, please, hand me a box of tissues talking about it, please, because this short film is just a cartoon, and it tears you to pieces emotionally. The film follows two grieving parents as they grapple with the loss of their daughter, who died during a school shooting. It's insane. It tackles familial bonds and how grief can separate and reconcile relationships. It needs to win. It is so brilliant, so heart-wrenching, and so well done. Short live-action film will go to Two Distant Strangers. I mean, the film is to die for. They combine the most poignant topics of the past decade, police brutality, and mix it with a science fiction Groundhog Day-style time loop storyline. It throws in our face the millions of ways police officers brutally kill black men and women today. It is in your face. It's graphic. At times, it's hard to watch. But that's what makes it such a unique, important, and influential short film. It could honestly be played in sociology classes. It's so well written and so on the nose, but still done so elegantly and with really unique take on such a heavy topic. I hope this film wins, and there's no doubt in my mind that it deserves it. 100%. For Mini Doc, Do Not Split was very well done. It documented the story about the ongoing unrest currently occurring in Hong Kong. The film runs around 35 minutes, but still hits all the necessary points it needs to. Highly recommend it because it is very informative about the anti-extradition law amendment bill movement in Hong Kong and all its sieges. Original score, gotta give it to my main film Soul. I mean, something about jazz music, guys. It can tell any story it wants to. And its addition to this piece, wow. It just enhances every single moment. I am not going to keep going about it because I already have, but I really love it. For original song, I picked Lo Si, which means scene, which is featured in the film The Life Ahead. Although I have not seen the film, I really think this song is so magnificent. I really think it will sweep. Of course, Hear My Voice from Chicago 7 is just as timely. However, it lacks that simplicity and originality that Lo Si encapsulates. Cinematography will go to Nomadland. Although it stands nowhere near last year's winner, 1917, it is truly a really impactful piece. And its mainly outdoor, dim-lit, and raw-style filming really makes the film. I don't think it is anything brilliant or breathtaking, but I think out of all its competitors, it has the best chance of winning the gold. Costume design either goes to Ma Rainey's Black Bottom or Emma. Period pieces always win, guys. It's a no-brainer. The question is, what period piece will win? They're starkly different in color palette, time period, and to be honest, culture, so it's hard to judge which should win. For some reason, I feel as if Emma will. It had that Bridgerton-esque costuming that was just breathtaking. It catches your eyes with the bright colors, the frilly bonnets, and the snatched corset waists. Makeup easily goes to Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Just look at the pictures of Viola Davis in the film. I mean, she looks like a completely different human being. The dark, sweaty, smoky eyes are all that it takes to win for me. It's semi-simplistic, but it encapsulates her character as a whole. And finally, for Best Documentary, I've gotta go with My Octopus Teacher. The film can be found on Netflix if you haven't seen it, but it deserves the win. It takes a try at a brand new type of nature documentary style. Instead of looking at nature from a godlike perspective like most do, My Octopus Teacher is a very curious, human view at an odd, unknown organism. It's a lot more relatable to the viewer. Alright guys, to say that was a lot was an understatement. I just covered an immense amount of cinema, but to be honest, it's kind of what the Oscars is. There may have been one or two pieces I decided to abstain from, but wouldn't you want me to do that rather than fake it with you guys? Come on, we're closer than that. We are homies. And homies don't lie about what Oscar nominees they've seen and what they haven't seen. Also, I have no right to be commenting on production design or sound mixing. Sorry. Sadly, my credentials as a 19-year-old film geek don't stretch that far. Next up, we'll be covering a new movie that people are saying is the new Mean Girls, while I'm saying it completely misses the ballpark. Stay tuned.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Netflix is back, snooping the internet for their next teen film plot. I mean, the last time they produced something original and not based off of an online fan fiction story must have been when they were still mailing us DVDs. But Moxie is their latest attempt to speak to the youth. Honestly, at first watch, I enjoyed it. The film follows teenager Vivian, who starts a punk-era feminist design. That's Homemade Magazine for all of you non-West Coasters. That's me. I'm from the East Coast and I did not know what a zine was. And it ignites a riot within her small-town high school. Needless to say, the film really tries to be as woke and girl power as it possibly can. And for the most part, it does an okay job. The plotline of Vivian and her character arc is probably one that was the most influential and poignant of the film. I think it was extremely relatable as well. We watch as this young girl goes from being a meek, quiet pushover who simply accepts the status quo to becoming outspoken, proud, and calls out the BS that her male classmates put the female student body through. It's something every young feminist can relate to, and it's also something that many see with their own female friends as the Me Too and women's movement gain more traction. Overall, She is the most interesting character to invest in. The other parts of the movie seem either overdone or randomly put in to attempt to check what I title woke boxes. First, let's examine some of the side characters. First of all, Vivian is a young white girl. She so happens to be surrounded by two best friends throughout the film. Her best friend from childhood, Claudia, played by the gorgeous Lauren Tsai, is an Asian American woman. Her storyline is semi-small until the end, and is one of the characters who becomes more quiet when feministic rioting takes over the school. This is not highlighted until it has to be, and I'll get to that later. The other friend, Lucy, played by another beautiful actress, Alicia Pasquale, is black. She is supposed to be new to the school and a fresh, bold, riot-like character from the start. Her job, in a sense, is to wake up Vivian from the submissive fog she's been living under. Which she does, and that's basically it. We know nothing about her life prior to meeting Vivian. Her storyline is simply to teach the white girl how to be a feminist, and then act as moral support. Listen, it's cliche, it's overdone, and it's downright odd to see in 2021. I mean, I feel like this conversation happens a lot. Stop making people of color simply be the moral guides or teachers for the white protagonist. It's tiring, it's overdone, and it's honestly, at this point, weird. It's not that her supporting and teaching Vivian is necessarily the problem. It's the lack of her own character arc that enables the issue. If she is just there to support and teach a white protagonist, and that's all, then her character is just chalked up to another POC who is just there to allow the movie to get the diversity stamp of approval. There are other characters of color who do have storylines and arcs, but Lucy's role is outdated. It's two-dimensional, and it needs to be rewritten or have some scenes added. Back to Claudia. The character actually has a backstory. However, her purpose was written poorly. There are two moments in the film where they attempt to tackle the topic of intersectionality. For anyone who doesn't know, intersectionality, by Google definition, I am literally reading this off of my phone as I speak, is the interconnected nature of social categorization such as race, class, and gender as they apply to a given individual or group, regarded as creating overlapping and interdependent systems of discrimination or disadvantage. So when you tackle feminism, you shouldn't just be tackling, say, white woman feminism. You need to be tackling how gender is affected by other sections of identity. A white woman fighting for equal rights is going to want a slew of similar but also different demands than that of a black, Asian, or Latino woman. Amy Poehler's character, who plays Vivian's mother, mentions this briefly in one of the preliminary scenes. She is explaining how she used to have a feminist club in high school that would always protest different things they felt held up the patriarchy. She admits, however, that although the group was standing up for what was right, they made a multitude of mistakes. She mentions how they weren't intersectional enough. However, that's all she really says. For any young viewer watching who does not know what that term holds, the moment will go right over the watcher's head. It is a throwaway line. It doesn't hold the weight it deserves, and for that reason, diminishes its very reason for being written. The second call-out of the intersectionality occurs when Vivian chastises her friend Claudia for not being more outspoken on issues of women's rights within the school. We see some of the reasoning behind this when Moxie, the design Vivian creates, asks all the girls to wear tank tops in order to protest the sexism that relates to the school's dress code. Snaps for that one. Over here, girl power. Claudia attempts to wear a tank top, but before she can leave her house, her mother, who speaks only in Mandarin for the scene, yells at her. Weirdly enough, we do not get subtitles, so we do not know what she is saying. But after the incident, Claudia arrives to school in a sweatshirt. So we can assume that the chastising had something to do with the tank top. Here we get a glimpse into why Claudia may not be as outspoken as some of the other girls. However, she does not speak out on this until the peak of the film's plot, when Claudia is suspended for taking the fall for being the anonymous Moxie, taking any suspicion away from Vivian, the true creator. When Claudia and Vivian argue, Claudia says the most random line ever, quote-unquote, "You don't get it, Vivian. You don't get it because you're white." Which Vivian and the viewer both respond with a stuttering, "What?" Claudia then goes on to explain that her mother sacrificed a lot to get to this country and make a life for Claudia. And that's why it is hard for her to speak out against injustices. Right. Totally. But again, a brush over moment. Instead of focusing on that and honing on that throughout the film, it is thrown away over the fact that Claudia took the fall for Vivian. Because, quote-unquote, Vivian is a coward and Claudia claims she is not. It could have been a phenomenal moment for the film, but because of lack of context, build, character development, and additional callback to that moment later on in the film, it is another attempt at checking a box, but sadly, completely missing the mark. Although Moxie holds a cool, provocative message for young viewers everywhere, along with highlighting the struggle of young girls dealing with high school and the patriarchy, it lacks the type of intersectionality it so deeply attempts to tackle. It is a cool film, I will give it that. The idea behind it is good, and the storyline of Vivian is quite relatable. But don't forget, I am a white cisgender female identifying with the protagonist of this film because she too is a white cisgender female. I cannot speak for this movie being a good portrayal of feminism in the realm of high school for anyone else. In fact, it probably misses the mark for most other people, and I wouldn't blame anyone for feeling that way. Next up, we'll be diving into the top 3 documentaries you should be watching this month. Stay tuned.
Watching TV has changed over time. Streaming has become the new norm. That's why Golden State Media Concepts television podcast dives headfirst to the world of cord cutting. Want to be on the loop of what's hot in Netflix? Or if it's not a preference, what about original shows in Hulu? We've got you covered. Join us as we fill in the blank and talk about movies to stream and what show you should be binging. This is the Golden State Media Concepts television podcast.
Okay, it's Friday night. You're bored. There is nothing to do. And you don't want to rot your brain. So, you want to watch something educational. Timely. Maybe it even makes you think. So you need a doc, right? A nice documentary that just tells it like it is. So you go on Netflix, right? But there is so much stuff. I mean, there is a multitude of content you just have to sift through. To get through it all would take a lifetime. I mean, Netflix is spitting out content left and right that something impactful, important, and poignant may have been released months, maybe even years ago. You'll have no clue because you're seeing films released 3 seconds prior and, apparently, the top 10 most viewed content in America today. I mean, how does that happen? I'll tell you how. Netflix. Okay, anyways, I'm going to show you guys how to discover what you should be watching. It's Bryn's top 3 documentaries on Netflix. Cue the fireworks. Pew, 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 pew. And we are starting it off right. First off on this list is my all-time favorite Netflix documentary, Blackfish. That's right. We are taking it back to 2013 when Netflix was just starting to be a streaming service. If you haven't watched it, that should be your first order of business. It concerns Tilikum. If you don't know who that is, have you been living under a rock? Anyways, he's a killer whale, aka an orca, who's kept in captivity in SeaWorld. Tears, I know. The film focuses on that idea mainly. These majestic, large, exuberant creatures are captive in small, neon blue tanks for our own enjoyment and entertainment. And when they lash out, why are we surprised? Okay, Tilikum is a pretty big deal in the SeaWorld world. Mainly because he's killed 3 different people. Yeah. Big guy is a pretty notorious serial killer at this point. Serial killer whale. See what I did there? Alright, anyways. The movie did exactly what it intended to do. It was an expose film, and it exposed the heck out of SeaWorld and all its trainers. And, as most exposures go, made a lot of people pretty mad. SeaWorld was outraged. Some of Tilikum's ex-trainers who aren't in caskets buried 12 feet under were saying it was false, but I mean, the footage is there, guys. You literally kidnapped these whales, put them in tanks, abused them, and then forcefully made them reproduce in captivity. If anything, y'all look like the liars. But anyways, the film is really eye-opening about the idea of zoology as a whole. Humans have really made it a goal to raise education and awareness around species other than our own. Great! But a way we have done that is putting animals in captivity for our own curiosity, knowledge, and, frankly, entertainment. Blackfish makes us ask, at what cost? Orcas like Tilikum literally have physical mutations due to their captivity. No joke. Their dorsal fins are legit collapsed. That's just wrong. These animals were abused, extorted, separated from their offspring, and for what? The answer is us. Pew! Mind blown. Yeah. I know you're putting Blackfish down on your Netflix queue as we speak. Next up, we've got Fire. The greatest party that never happened. Now, truth be told, guys, I would never have put this on my top 3 list. Ever. Never, ever, 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 ever. But I recently rewatched it this week, and let me tell you, it is a must-see. And I'm saying that in all caps with no cap. The story is crazy. I'm a sucker for an expose-style piece, but Fire just goes above and beyond. Everyone likes seeing rich people fall in the mud, but this story, I mean, it's just too good to be true. Okay, the story is basically this young entrepreneur, Billy McFarland, who teams up with Ja Rule, of all people, and they come up with this multi-million-dollar idea of creating this music festival. And it takes place on a private island in the Bahamas. If you think it's too good to be true, you'd be right. The festival failed, and saying that is an understatement. They had no space. Every tent was literally a sheet, and the beds, after a huge storm the night before the first guests arrived, were soaked. There was no food, no water, no toilets. It was a mess. It was a huge issue of fraud. I mean, the investors were being conned, the employees weren't being paid, and the customers were shown incredibly false advertising. And I mean, some of this stuff this guy Billy tries to pull off, it's jaw-dropping. He is advised millions of times to just cancel the whole thing, and yet he just keeps digging deeper into his own grave. It's hysterical. It is shocking. It's exploitative. And it's provocative. It's entertaining to say the least, and I think it's hands down a must-see. Maybe not the most educational or timely, but super interesting and captivating to watch. I highly recommend it, especially if you liked documentaries like Varsity Blues. The final Netflix doc we will be covering is a huge vibe switch from Fire and honestly also Blackfish. Although staying on the expose-style documentary type, for the final Netflix doc must-watch, we will be looking at the wildly disturbing, viscerally upsetting, and downright sickening film, Athlete A. The film is the newest of the three, being released just last summer, in June of 2020. But it is also the most provocative and impactful of the three. Athlete A covers the investigative team from the Indianapolis Star, who inevitably uncovered the dark truth of Dr. Larry Nassar, the USA Gymnastics team's personal trainer and physical therapist, who was sexually assaulting a majority of the team's young athletes. It shows again that in the end, big corporations are more focused on protecting their brand than their own young girls who are making them thrive. The film uncovers that Dr. Nassar sexually assaulted not one, not five, but 500 young female gymnasts in his time as a physical therapist for both USA Gymnastics, Michigan Gymnastics, and beyond in his private practice. The film doesn't solely focus on Dr. Nassar's abuse. It focuses on the stress, strife, and hardships that go through young female athletes as a whole. Women's gymnastics as a whole is no longer for women, but for small, petite girls. It is competitive, it is grueling, and it is ruthless. Many girls know that if they are not willing to put up with abuse, hardships, or unfairness, there is going to be another small, petite girl just waiting to take her place. It also shows us how compliant these girls became from their abuse due to the way they were treated. The culture breeds silence, which is just sickening to even think of. The film showed that these girls could not tell where strict coaching ended and abuse began. And that was the most eye-opening part of the whole film. Although it is sickening to watch and uncomfortable to sit through, it is a very impactful film that I think most people should see. It shows the true price many female athletes must pay to be the best of the best, and how the sports world, along with the rest of society, needs to change now for all women everywhere. You should definitely put Athlete A on your Netflix queue now. I promise you these 3 films will wake you up. They will tell you things like it is. They will be real. Expose docs are the best to watch because they just give you such an eye-opening view into some of the weirdest, most random things you have ever seen. Do you think I would have known anything about how orcas are bred in captivity if I hadn't watched Blackfish? No. Do you think I would be rooting for Billy McFarland to be in jail had I not watched Fyre Fest? No. Do you think I would have gotten an inside scoop into Dr. Larry Nassar's trial if I hadn't watched Athlete A? No. You gotta start watching these films, guys. Educate yourself. Don't just sit in front of the TV to watch. Sit in front of the TV to learn as well. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you guys liked this week's show. If you enjoyed this, make sure to listen to other GSMC movie podcasts. We have a ton of content to look through and listen to. Thanks so much for listening, guys. This was GSMC Movie Podcasts, and I am Bryn Taylor. Thank ya.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Movie Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.